initializing and syncing and ready to go. Phasers loaded. I'm switching. No. I'm switching to photon torpedoes.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Screw that. Arm the photon torpedoes.
Rocket Man.
uh,
Something's
23,
happening.
23 Fields says, "Are we there yet?" Yeah, we're there. Get out. My dad said that to me once. I was 16 years old in the back seat. Dad, are we there yet? And he's like, "Yeah, we're there. Get out." Doing
Well,
60 miles an hour on the highway.
this is the Trampled Underfoot podcast show. Lindsay out in the west, Eloy over and on the east. We're live, and so I just got that out of the way.
Thank you.
Let me just mention this aside
Okay.
at the start of the thing. An aside, it's like this is a preamble to the preamble of the show. Not really. It's just a little story. I did I wrote a post of Jamie Page's visit to Abbey Road back in 2016, and I gathered all the pictures and all the stuff, and I even interviewed him. Like we sat here and did a back and forth interview, and I did a little post of it of all the details. But to begin it, in order to structure it to show, well, why would it be important to me that he did that great thing? He said, "Elo, I'm going to visit Abbey Road for you. I'm going to be in London anyways, and I'm gonna write your name in front of Abbey Road, and I'm gonna snap a picture." I was like, dude, and so this is back in 2016, and but to start the post, I said, well, I got to give it context to why in the world would I like the Beatles, like, I mean, okay, the
Mm-hmm.
Beatles, okay, but how does that associate with how important is that to me and this and that? Well, I didn't go crazy, but I did reflect back and found a memory that's always been there, but I've just like it comes by and you don't visit it. You just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, there it is." Has that ever happened where you have
Oh
like
yeah.
as you're driving down the highway, like, "Oh yeah, that's a memory, but I'm not gonna stop on for now,"
Yeah.
or maybe
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
you're saying.
I lived here for so many years that I drive down the road and I see things that have changed every day, and a memory comes back. It happens to me every day.
So one of those memories goes back to before I was even in kindergarten, where my parents would go to school.
Mhm.
To school. I just butchered that one. Where my parents would go to work, and I wasn't going to school yet or kindergarten, and they would walk me because across the here in this block, in the apartments upstairs, was my neighbor Teresa or Teresa. I don't know why I tried to. You can say Teresa, um,
Mhm.
um, but I did you say Teresa? I don't know what the hell is that. Anyways, um, and so they took me up there. They would take me up there. Mom would. Dad would be waiting in the car to drive my mom to the down Little Havana where they both work and this and that. So they'd make that trip. And Teresa would be my what do you call it, babysitter? You would call
Babysitter, yeah.
it? She had a son, and she was Cuban. Um, and I'd spend the day there coloring, watching TV. And so I recalled the thing, and I pinpointed the first likely time I ever heard the Beatles, and that was me sitting in her son's room as the afternoon rolled in after Kung Fu with Carradine
Mhm.
and all the game shows in the morning and Gumby and
Yeah.
like all that stuff, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and so on. And in one of those early afternoon shows, which that one I don't remember except the end credits. The show ended, and then in black and white, a letter crawl started coming up, and the Beatles were sitting there singing, "Try to see it my way."
Mhm.
Um, we can work it out.
Mhm.
And I remembered me sitting there as a little kid, frozen, staring into that because That song, from my little kid perspective point of view, was something sonically
Mhm.
that I had at till that point, and I didn't have much of a track record behind me,
Sure.
but at that moment, it was so striking to
Mhm.
me sitting there, that I remembered it, and I've always had that memory sitting there, and I've visited it sometimes, but I've never written it down.
Yeah.
And the tempo change. Life is very short, and there's no time. And then the fast speed up,
Mhm.
in your way, and then the switch into that, and just I was it blew my mind at that moment.
Mhm.
I would later grow and learn more, but even as a kid, so I wrote that whole story there in order to preface or to open up the story of Jamie Page going in this and that, to create a memory moment,
Mhm.
and why it was special to me. Not just saying that, oh, I like the Beatles and they're so great for no reason. No, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Um,
That
I
they
can,
resonated with you. Yeah.
yeah, I can actually articulate um, the particulars of why the Beatles are meaningful to me in profound ways. And so anyways, the whole story went on and this and that, and I sealed the deal in that post. But yeah, the first time I heard the Beatles that I can properly recall was in the credit roll of a show back in the it could have been 78, 79, or 80. It probably wasn't 80. It was probably either 78, could have been 77, 78, 79.
Okay.
More likely in that little window.
There was a Beatles revival at about that time. Um, Got to Get You Into My Life was playing on the radio, and an album was released, and I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was the Beatles, but it was some of their early stuff and some of their later stuff that was never put on an album. And there was kind of a Beatles revival going on at that time, and that's when I really seriously got into listening to their music. I bought Abbey Road, and I bought Sergeant Pepper, and a couple of other, Let It Be, and a few other albums. And I played the hell out of them. So much so that a couple of my friends complained, "Are you playing the damn Beatles again?" It's like, that's old music. That's your mom and dad's music. Um, I don't remember when Beatlemania hit in this country, if it was like 62, 63, 64, something like that.
Yeah.
But when I became really aware, uh, I can't remember a time without the Beatles. And I'm talking about from their early I Want to Hold Your Hand days all the way up to their breakup. And I was one of those people that was really disappointed when they broke up. Because you figure together as a group, they only had a 9-year career, 8 or 9 years. Wasn't very long as compared to some of the groups running today. So they were always just there. And then when they broke up, all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, now what happens? And then Paul McCartney started taking off his career before Wings, and then solo again after Linda passed away. And George Harrison did a little bit. John Lennon was always, I don't know, everybody called George Harrison the quiet Beatle. But I want to say that after the breakup, John Lennon was quieter than George Harrison ever was. I don't know how many works he put out. He kind of backed away from everything, just focused on life, I think.
He had a succession of albums that were pretty cool, but he had the Plastic Ono Band
Mm-hmm.
theme,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he did a few albums with that, and then he rolled into some. But it was the combination of them.
Mm-hmm.
that had a certain magic,
Yeah, I agree.
and that magic touched in my. So you know, and I asked Jamie Page this. I said, Jamie, have you ever sat and listened to a Beatles album? And he said no. And he's from England,
Hmm.
and
Well,
the patrimony
mhm,
that the Beatles are. If you think of um, so, it, let alone you out on the West Coast. Like if we're thinking of measuring,
mhm.
I'm closer to England than you are. I mean, this is a ridiculous thing to
Yeah,
say,
but by
but
about 3,000 miles. Yeah.
this is a ridiculous framing. But what I'm getting at is just like, so you're all the heck out west,
Yeah.
but for you, you're right where like you're right in the center of things because it's from your point of view. I'm in Miami. I'm that much further from you from there to here from you to here, and then from here to Jamie Page is it's a long track,
Yeah.
um, but it's closer than you to. And what I'm getting at is that notwithstanding distance, radio airplay, and
Mhm,
record sales and movies and this and that, filtered into the consciousness of people like us,
mhm.
culturally, sonically, and this and that, um, and yet so distant away, and yet, and through decades, and yet JP, a person that's literally from the epicenter. I mean, he's more
Uh-huh.
towards the south than like
Right. He's not up in Liverpool, but yeah. Point taken.
but just the same, it's such a that band was such a representative of like a good sort of chamber of commerce, aloha to the world, saying, "Hey, look what England has
Hmm.
to offer. We've got peace and love. We've got psychedelia. I mean, they weren't the only ones, but let's get it
No.
clear. They were, in my opinion, sorry to say, they were the first ones. I mean, sure, whatever, this, that, and the other, but them, no, no, no. They were the epicenter. So it's striking to know that. And if Jamie Page isn't necessarily like into, and of course he would have his era's
Sure.
interest,
Sure.
but other English people, British people, um, of his like general area, um, what do you call it?
His
Generate,
generation? Yeah.
yeah, generational thing. If you go by that, the picture is for me a shocking one in a sense because the Beatles are so special, musically, um, lyrically, story wise, everything that 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 why wouldn't when everybody has their own taste and this and that,
Sure.
but why wouldn't they all um um
Well, because they weren't exposed to it like we were. See, to me, the Beatles were always there. They were current. They were on the radio. They were playing things like Lady Madonna on the radio when I was a kid. Rubber Soul came out. They played Strawberry Fields Forever. I heard it on the radio. And so yesterday I heard it played on the radio. They were always just there. And so I was exposed to their music and I kept seeing how they evolved both personally and their music evolved. And I then saw other people not so much try to copy him, although that was going on at the time, where you had like the Beau Brummels and Paul Revere and the Raiders, and what was the one with the Birds? They had all taken elements from the Beatles and capitalized on them
oh yeah,
and tried to become like an American version. It didn't work out, so they did their own thing,
they weren't
and
bad
that
though.
and that worked out. When they did their own thing, that worked out.
I
But
liked them though.
but when they tried to copy the Beatles, you could tell it was contrived. My point being is the British invasion And that's what it was, because you had the Beatles, you had the Stones, you had Herman's Hermits, you had all kinds of different bands come, uh, and eventually Pink Floyd come from England, and they were the most popular thing on the radio. You know, you and I can't think of a time when this has happened. Well, you can't think of a time when this has happened, but I can remember when the top five was all Beatles songs. The You had the top 10, the top five were Beatles songs. That's never happened again. The closest that that came to was during the 70s when the Bee Gees were in their disco thing. But Barry Gibb was a prolific songwriter, and all five of the top five from the top 40 was either the Bee Gees or something Barry Gibb wrote, and another performer was performing. So he's the one that he came closest to having all five of the top five be him. But the Beatles did get all five of the top five them, because their songs would just be so popular for such a long period of time, you know.
If you think of the well, one of the things that I liked about them, and I couldn't put it into words growing up, but there was something special about it. And I
Yeah.
think that I associate this even with my. I'm not trying to claim it, but well, in a way, I sort of am. At least the spirit of it, where I've always personally, you know that saying, um, something of something, master of none. What is that?
Oh, jack of all trades, master of none.
Right. So that concept,
Hmm.
which has its implications, if you think of entertainment and art and music and stories and books and movies, um, what's closer to reality is not a clean one theme timeline of, like, let's say, um, I just like blues
Hmm.
and everything. I mean, there is that, but for
Yeah.
me, I like blues, but then I can transition into I like jazz, I like rock, I like heavy metal, I like
Sure.
and I like short stories, long stories. I like the biography. So what I mean is this: that since there's some sort of chaotic thing with my taste in terms of like all the different things, and yet there's this question of like I identifying with, hey man, are you a blues musician?
Hmm.
Are you blues man? Are you a rock and roller man? And so you have to decide on some, or the implication is that you should decide on something because that
Well,
that way people can, well, let me just get to the Beatles. So, and that's in my world. But the Beatles did whatever the heck they wanted,
hmm,
sonically, music and storytelling wise, where you'd have a Lady Madonna with that clanky piano,
hmm,
but then they'd install some overdrive guitars
hmm, do, do, do,
into
do,
something that could have
do,
been done early 1900s,
hmm.
and then they mix, folk songs with other type of this and that. They didn't lock themselves in. They did what the heck they
Yeah,
wanted, and that was inspirational because they created like a like an expansive little
they
universe,
were the explorers. Yeah, they were the explorers pushing their bounds of music.
and I like that.
Hmm.
I like that, and who else has done that? Who else
Well,
has done that
the Beach Boys, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, a lot of bands did that.
after them?
Mhm. Yeah, but they also did it alongside them at the same time. I mean, Pink Floyd didn't start with Dark Side of the Moon. You've got a history long before that.
No, 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 no. There were other people exploring psychedelia and over
Yeah,
in the United States as
exactly.
well. That's true.
Mhm.
Um, that's
But
true. But they had a good marketing. Also, the Beatles had a great marketing team.
they all influenced each other, because the Brits knew one another. You know, you can't be Lennon and McCartney and not know Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. you can't not know um, David Gilmour. Now, I have a little bit of insight in this because one of our good friends, her first husband was John Entwistle, who was the bassist for The Who. And she said it was absolutely nothing to get out of bed at 11 in the morning, walk downstairs in a nightgown with a robe over it, and find Mick Jagger, John Paul Jones, and Michael Caine sitting on her sofa talking with her husband. So that was just common. And they would sit there and BS with one another, just like you and I are doing now. You know, talk
Jimmy,
about who's doing what and this and that and the other. Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but I got sidetracked. Jamie did answer you, and he said, "Hey, I was brought up with Pink Floyd, Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin. The Beatles were never mentioned, but I did eventually find them, and I do like some songs, but never heard a full album."
yeah, I'm not knocking. Okay, so the idea, and I guess I don't know if that translated over from my mind out. The idea is not knocking; it's just an impression where you have this band from England, Liverpool, in the '60s, and you have a population in England, the UK, and this and that, and I'm sure that many people, but like, um, I guess this is what I'm saying. Our exposure, like my exposure compared to Mark's exposure,
Hmm.
and so like let me even say it this way. So if you take Lady Madonna, the song, and you ask Mark and I and people out there, Jimmy Page included, say, "Hey man, how about Lady Madonna?" And then each person says, "Oh well, X, Y, and Z about that song." They might pull up their first time hearing it, what strikes them from it. Um, each person has a different association
Hmm.
to even though there's one song that the Beatles produced that came out from
Yeah,
the airwaves into our ears, our interpretations of that song and our liking of it and the meaningfulness to it is contextual according to our location, time,
yeah.
and all that. Um, but I guess it to me they were. I guess I just like them, but I'm not the only one.
No,
It's just like
no. They were the first band to secure in their contracts $1 per album. The band got $1 from every album they sold. And when you think of how many millions of albums that got released, that's a ton of money. Now, obviously it was divided many ways to many people, and they had a ton of expenses and what have you. But you don't get there unless people love you. Now, I mentioned Beatlemania a little while ago. I'm gonna finish up Jamie's quote first. He says, "I actually prefer more of Lennon and McCartney's single stuff as opposed to the Beatles stuff." Jamie, if you can get a hold of um, Abbey Road, uh, find some time to sit down and listen to the Abbey Road album and remember when this was recorded. Side two will blow you away that they could do that in 1969. Uh, I still think side two to Abbey Road is one of the best engineered albums out there on the face of the earth.
um, let me reply to him. What was it that he said? He said that he prefers Lennon and McCartney aside from their single.
No, he
Or what?
prefers more of Lennon and McCartney single stuff as opposed to the Beatles stuff.
Okay, so my reply to Jamie Page is this: if this were the 1700s, I would create a tribunal for high treason in the high seas of such. a terrible thing to say. It would be a travesty, a betrayal. It would be, but, but, but the sentence would be just a light tar and feathering. And yes, we will provide a bucket with a big thing of Irish Spring soap, which degreases, so you don't have to worry. But that comment is at the level of 19, or did I say 1970s?
No, you
17.
said 1700s.
Yeah, it's at the level. It's at the level of 1700s treason, high treason on the seas. Sorry,
The only problem with that is in the 1700s, nobody had heard of the Beatles because they weren't alive yet.
that's true. So
That does
would
put a
a kink in my
yeah,
thing.
that does kind of screw things up. But I think Jim Dockrell kind of misunderstood me, or maybe I didn't make myself clear. I mentioned Beatlemania, and he said I worked the pack in, pack out, and security at Beatlemania when they played in Sudbury, Ontario. There is a band called Beatlemania, and there's a show called Beatlemania. Where that word came from, however, was when the Beatles came over from England and took North America by storm, especially teenage girls. I mean, they got off the plane and they had to have security tighter than the president did because kids were trying to sneak into their room. They were trying anything and everything. They would hide on a cart if they thought it was going into Paul McCartney's, you know, uh, hotel room for security. Beatlemania just kind of swept the nation. All of the teenage girls were absolutely in love with the Beatles and would sit around and talk about which one they were going to marry, and all this other kind of stuff. It was absolutely crazy. I understand, Jim. He says it just brought up the memory when you said it. I understand, Jim, because it hit me like that too. But a lot of the people that aren't of our age um, just don't. They don't get. Look, I'm 64. I don't get it. Like Eloy, imagine there's no clam chowder. Yeah, not in the 1700s. There's not. You had ship's biscuits. Greg says sometimes I think he's a teenage girl. We all have a little teenage girl in us.
You know what's disturbing about that?
Mm.
I'll leave that for a sec. This deserves a particular individual reply.
I'll leave that to you. But people now don't get what Beatlemania was because we just weren't alive. I mean, I was like 2 years old. I didn't even know I was alive yet.
I
But
mean,
I mean, the that's what drove their popularity was just the whole thing was completely different. The
so
whole thing, they were just absolutely different.
so during one visit to Disney World, just to answer Jim's thing, um, uh, you know how Disney World usually has barbershop quartets
Yeah.
and like all that kind of stuff, music, this and that. The time I was there, back probably in 2004 or whatever,
Hmm.
they had a Beatles cover band.
Hmm.
There's a gazebo,
Yeah.
and they were playing in the gazebo, and I saw them from a distance, and I was there with my girlfriend and her daughter, and there were people there, and I saw them, and I screamed like a girl. I went, ah! And I number one, I know or I knew that they were just
A cover band.
a cover band, obviously, but I ran. They had to follow me running. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and like I got there and there was a crowd of people like going, yeah, and I was like, yeah, and I thought, man, I'm really over emotional right now, but I don't.
But that was the response. I mean, go back and find footage of that. Go back and look for footage. It's on YouTube of the Beatles performing on the Ed Sullivan Show, and the cameras pointing at the crowd of, and especially girls sitting in the audience screaming and crying. And I mean, I don't mean alligator tears here. I mean genuine bawling, just losing everything. Oh my God, Paul is right there. Oh my God, Paul is right there. And it was crazy how the US reacted. It was just absolutely nuts. Linda says, I was 12 when the Beatles first came to the US. Yeah, you were their target demographic. They knew you didn't have money, but daddy did. And daddy would take care of his princess.
I'm feeling a little bold right now. I'm going to answer. Wait, I'm going to answer this comment from Snow Crusher. Point of order. It is a fact that if the Beatles didn't happen, Canada wouldn't exist. I'm
Oh,
bold.
here we go.
I'm bold right
Yeah, you
now.
are.
Right now.
Jamie says I acted the same way when I ran up Enoy's front gate towards his front door. Like a 12-year-old girl. Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
okay,
man.
maybe I exaggerate with that reply to Greg, but the bands he likes
Mhm.
wouldn't sound
Well,
the you know what I'm saying? Like they wouldn't even sound like the way they
but he also likes the Rolling Stones. And there you see the divide. Now, he says he had to suffer through Beatlemania because he was a young man at the time. The girls weren't interested in guys who didn't look like the Beatles or didn't dress like the Beatles. They wanted Paul. Some of them wanted George. I know I can get him out of his funk. If you liked Ringo, you were a goofball. Oh no, you get stuck with Ringo. He wasn't the heartthrob. But the guys were just trash. Forget it. Forget it. You are never going to measure up to John Lennon or Paul McCartney. You just aren't. So for the guys, it was kind of a bit of what's up with that. But then the Rolling Stones came along and they were the anti Beatles
yeah.
because the Rolling Stones were considered dirty. Oh, look, they're so dirty. They're so greasy. No, they're not. They're just another band, you know?
I attacked Canada in a
Mhm.
very light way, and look what the how rambunctious these people. Oh, did you press it? Okay, here.
I,
Did Eloy throw? Wait, Eloy, did you ever throw your jockeys at Tom Jones? Okay, now this is an ego question
but
because it's well, no, but let me. Can I answer this problem? You're doing without me even being able to defend myself. It's like three against one here. Eloy throwing jockey. What is it? Eloy throwing jockey. What is it? Hold on.
jockey shorts at Tom Jones.
No, is jockey shorts or jockey? Is it that the football players with the Brazilian dental floss up
No,
the
it's the
back?
tidy whities.
Oh, is that what jockey shorts are?
Yeah, tidy
I was
whities.
thinking like the football. I went to the worst case scenario. So if if Tom Jones were part of the Beatles, um, I would participate in throwing my jockey. Now, whether or not they would like it or not, but if it's Tom Jones on his own, a great singer in his own right,
Hmm.
um,
And the
I
women loved him. And that's where that came from. Women would actually throw their underwear up on the stage to
no, no,
Tom
I
Jones.
know, but but in that case, I wouldn't feel it necessarily uh, compelled to do such a thing because
Yeah.
the magic is not in like because Tom Jones is a sex symbol, right?
Hmm.
The implication is eroticism of a twisted
Hmm.
nature here. That's the
And
joke. That's the punch. That's the clever. That's the
well,
clever. thing because
Actually, no, that was the setup because Jamie is the one, and that's what I was trying to bring up. Jamie delivered the punchline, said he did, Greg, but it's not unusual.
it's not unusual. It's not unusual. Look, there's no, I can't, I don't even want to. Although you can argue that this was an excuse, a certain excuse by making light of it. I cannot um, um, throw the Beatles under the bus. I can't do it. I will say that I truly have, you know, appreciation for them. And if
Oh, I do too.
and if that's a bit weird for um, Macho Man Randy Savage Greg up there in Canada,
Mhm.
then I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm gonna have
Well,
to double down.
but there you see the divide, and that was a major divide. You had the Beatles fans over here, and then you had the Rolling Stones fans over there, because the Rolling Stones were the anti-Beatles. So if you didn't like the Beatles, you latched onto the Rolling Stones, and a lot of the guys did. Not a lot of the girls liked the Rolling Stones.
I don't know that is that true.
But yeah, but a lot of the guys did, and I'm talking about back in the day. You know, let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. Ain't no 13-year-old girl's gonna like that. But a 14, 15, 16-year-old guy, he's like, oh, hell yeah, that's the stuff that I want to say to that girl that's over there going, I want to hold your hand. Now, you know,
Well, look, another thing about the Beatles is that issue where they start with this sort of innocence,
hmm
but they have little trickles of something's happening because
hmm
they're singing, and she was just 17, you know what I
when I
mean, and
when I
before too
saw
long.
her standing there. Yep.
So there's a little bit of raunchy rocking it up
Uh
as
huh.
opposed to I want to hold your hand.
Well,
Um,
there's a big difference between I want to hold your hand and let's spend the night together. You know what I mean?
but what I'm getting at, that the Beatles show a progression
Yes.
from this
Yes.
incubation period of
hmm
people imitating R&B and rock and roll from the United States,
hmm
but transforming it into their own style, into this like psychedelic dripping madness. Um,
Well, but
and I
but
like.
think about it. I want to hold your hand came out in what 1963,
I'm not sure. I think it was
and
60.
The Rubber Soul album came out in 65. So 2 years. That evolution in 2 years.
Yeah,
That's a lot. That's a lot, and that was fast.
yeah.
Um,
They transitioned into from this clean cut into really experimenting really quick. But in any event, obviously Greg's not having any of it.
no,
Um,
I take that back. I Want to Hold Your Hand was released in 64. So 1 year.
yeah.
That was a
Well,
fast transition.
no. Rubber Soul came in '66.
65. It was released in 1965.
Rubber Soul,
hmm Let me bring
and
it
when
back up.
was I don't know about that. I think it was '66. Oh no, it was
Studio album by the Beatles, 1965.
right. So Rubber Soul was '66, right?
No, Rubber Soul was 1965.
I'm sorry, not Rubber. Revolver was 66.
Revolver, let's see, Revolver.
That was '66.
Revolver was 66, yes.
Right. So then,
August of 66.
so between 64 and 60, actually in that year of 64 going into 65, they
hmm
had also released both. Correct me if I'm wrong, but both um, Eight Hands to Hold You, which
Or
was
8 days a week.
called First, it was Eight Arms to Hold You, I think it was.
hmm
Then so they released 8 days a week, and then they released Help,
hmm
and then they released Rubber Soul.
Right. So
So is that
that's what I mean, but it was a very fast evolution. So the innocence that they started with was groundbreaking, earth-shattering, absolutely floored everybody. Nobody saw that coming. Then the transition to 1965 from 64 was so it was such a quick evolution. I don't know that you could call it an evolution, but it was an evolution. Then Revolver came out and everything changed from that point on. That was 2 years after their initial success in the US. That's a fast evolution. Then they went on to do everything else, and as I said before, as a group, as a band, they only had a 9-year career, and they split up after 9 years. So, to do what they did, to assemble the catalog that they had, and to maintain the popularity, they dominated the charts. I mean, nobody even came close. And there were a lot of fantastic bands that were their peers. I mean, think about it. Led Zeppelin came along right in the middle of all that. Black Sabbath, as Jamie Page said earlier in an interview before he passed, um, where'd it go? Come on, Jamie, you put it up there. Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne told McCartney before he died that there never would have been a Black Sabbath if it wasn't for him. So the influence had to be there. It
yeah?
had to.
No, it's actually it's not only evidence, it's declared by
Mm-hmm.
musicians the world over.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
Um,
that's why I threw that at Greg,
mhm.
because it's true. It's true. The
But
Beatles are that important.
well, they are. But I mean, you get it when you think about it. There were several things going on at the same time. The Beatles were taking over the airwaves, and the girls loved it. The guys hated it because the guys were getting no attention from the girls. How do you compete with that? The answer is you can't. The guys latched on to the Rolling Stones and some of the other bands and some of the American bands. They didn't like that surfer stuff that was coming out of the Beach Boys and stuff. They didn't want that surfing crap. I'm here in the middle of Kansas. What the hell do I know about surfing? You know, they latched on to other performers and other acts. Then Led Zeppelin came along and it was holy crap. I mean, that was my declaration right there. This is mine. That's my music. Hands off. You can't have it. And my mother absolutely hated it. She hated everything about Led Zeppelin, but I loved it. Not because she hated it, in spite of the fact that she hated it, you know.
So a thing I'll add to that is that even though, oh, and by the way, Greg says, hold on, Rush is getting back together, kind of. I saw.
Yes, I saw that as well. I saw that. The you had Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee sitting there talking back and forth. Yeah, we're going back out with Annika Niles as their drummer. Um, I would still like to see Henry from Tool. Um, I think that's his last name. I would still like to see him tour with them under the name Rush. I don't know anything about Annika Niles. Um, I don't know anything about it, but I get Jim's joke. New drummer is from Germany. Annika Niles is her name, and there will finally be a girl at a Rush concert. Rush was always considered to be nerd or geek rock, and there are no female Rush fans.
That's not necessarily true.
That was the folklore. And it's just one of those things. Oh, you like Rush? No, you don't. You're a girl. There are no female Rush fans.
Yeah, it was more for the guys in a sense,
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
because of the nature of it's not necessarily love songs per se.
right. Exactly.
And by the way, that's even saying that, we're harkening back to, because nowadays, you know, I'd really like to say what I wanted to say, but this is a good point too. But whatever, we'll leave that alone. Although it's important. Um, just like the Beatles did all that, and I threw in the fact that what would be of Canadian bands if not for the Beatles, and so on and so forth. That
Yeah.
holds true for the U.S. and everybody else. But just as that much is true, because it's true, the
Mhm.
Beatles influenced by their own words. All
Mhm.
these bands you could look up on YouTube and online, and everybody says, "Yep, it was the Beatles, flat
Mhm.
out."
Yep.
So it's not like I'm hopeful and
Yeah.
wishful.
Yeah.
I'm saying that.
No, you're repeating a fact. Yeah.
But just like that is the case, and obviously not everybody, but
Sure.
like there's people out there that, but in a roundabout way, influence is influence. Um, the Beatles themselves were influenced by the sounds of the U.S.,
Oh yeah.
and that means Chuck Berry, that means Little
Roy
Richard,
Orbison,
that means the blues people of the time, B.B. King, um,
Elvis and Roy Orbison. They were such
Elvis,
huge fans of Roy Orbison. They
Elvis
were starstruck by the guy.
Roy Orbison, Elvis, and even um, the Motown people.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
all that influenced them. But when they took it
Mhm.
and tried to copy it, they kind of sounded like something kind of new,
Mhm.
um, of their own. But it's a derivative of the original, interpreted through this
Mhm.
English young lads environment, listening to it at home, and their imaginations. And what came out is their interpretation of that.
Mhm.
And then other people then from America listen to them interpreting that
Mhm.
originated in the United States. And then here we were influenced, and people produced things that were cyclically inspired.
Yeah.
And so I guess this is what I'm getting at. This contaminant, viral contaminant of sound
Mhm.
that jumps hosts across the ocean through
Mhm.
the airways. Um, there's no containment in that.
Right.
Um, and it produces the soundtrack, or it produced, and it's
Mhm.
still going on, but let's say for our purposes, it produced the soundtrack of the 20th century.
Yes, it did. Absolutely, 100%.
And the directions that it went in,
Yeah. And if you stop and think about it, what do we complain about today? That we complain about how soulless music is, you know? Um, uh-oh, somebody, Frankie had to bring it up. The Monkees is the Timu version of the Beatles. Even back in their day, the Monkees were seen as kind of a joke. They were called the Prefab Four, as in prefabricated,
yeah,
and the Beatles were the Fab Four. The Monkees were the Prefab Four, put together by Don Kirshner. And because of the way their contracts were written, um, they couldn't play their own instruments and go out on tour. It wasn't until, oh my God, I want to say the 90s that they were able to go out and tour as the Monkees. So they had like a 30-year stretch. And it was because of Don Kirshner, who was not a nice man. Anyway, um, but we talk about how soulless music is today. And it's simply because no band has replaced the Beatles. The Beatles were all about experimentation and pushing the envelope when it came to technology of the day. With the introduction of the Mellotron, they became the first band to use any kind of a synthesizer at all. They brought in Billy Preston on keyboards. He was credited a few times, he was not credited a few times. We can discuss whether that was fair to Billy Preston or not. But they were constantly evolving, constantly pushing the envelope. Um, I want to say it was John Lennon was having a discussion with one of the members of the Who, and said they had just finished recording My Generation. He said, "Yeah, we just recorded the most badass, the best rock and roll song ever." And I think it was John Lennon said, "Yeah, hold my beer," and out came Revolution. And that kind of thing happened a lot. They played off of each other and were in competition with one another, and they knew what they were doing. Then, out of left field, here comes Led Zeppelin. And then, holy crap, Black Sabbath. And then a whole bunch of other bands, King Crimson with Robert Fripp, and Deep Purple, and Pink Floyd, and all the rest of that. And it's all because they were pushing one another. And along the way, there were a bunch of other bands like Steppenwolf or Quicksilver. I mean, Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. And they all pushed one another to do better, to be louder, to make longer songs and be more progressive with their music and be more fearless, be more fierce if you have to, you know. And it 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 kind of ended, I want to say, in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s. And that's because the bands that came along after, um, you know, um, man,
Grunge,
well, grunge came along, yeah, but I'm talking about before grunge.
punk,
Punk was another one off to the side. I'm talking about rock and roll and pop, mainstream rock.
hair metal.
Without the Beatles there, well, the inspiration for all of those were the Beatles because that's what they were listening to when they were growing up. They were listening to the Beatles. They were
But
listening
what
to
do
the
you? But what
Stones.
do
They were
you?
listening to Led Zeppelin. What I'm getting at is no bands have replaced those pioneers.
Oh, okay.
So there's no influence on the musicians who are making music today. There isn't that influx of inspiration. You know what I mean? Nobody is trying to be like the Beatles. Nobody is trying to be like Led Zeppelin. Nobody is trying to nobody is getting any inspiration from Pink Floyd
Well, we don't know that, but
because it's because well, but I mean, we're talking about the mainstream now because that's dad's music. Now that's grandpa's music. You
yeah, but
know, it's a
We've run into this problem before because we live in a different world now where
we do.
the term of the term mainstream,
Hmm.
personally, I lean towards saying that's non-existent.
Well, Jim Dockrell kind of backs you up on that. There are only 6 bands in the top 100 today. The rest are single artists. So in the top 100, you have 6 bands and 94 single artists. Bands have gone the way of the dodo to a great extent. I agree 100%.
How many? Let me let's so let me ask this question out there and to you. How many people do you think are today still living in a paradigm? In other words, a imagine the bookends or the cultural bookends of 1980s, 1990s, what's popular, what's not, the airwaves telling us, or streaming, um, playing the songs
Mhm.
that cycle through the whole population, like that
Yeah.
world where they're taking cues explicit, like in other words, a unified theory field of what's popular. I don't think exists anymore.
I think you're right. And that's because each song is worthless now because it's so easy to manipulate. And, you were the one that turned me on to Rick Beata talking about that on one of his videos. What is the value of a song? Basically, it's worthless. If you don't have a body of work to put on Spotify of 40 or 50 songs, you're not even going to get listened to. And then people are going to pick and choose what they want. They're going to put it on a playlist. And when your song comes up, it may get played. Then again, they may hit, next. So each song is basically, eh, you know. The only rock band that I will listen to in today's generation is The Warning because I think they get it. Now, obviously, the bands of our generation that are still playing, Carlos Santana is still out there playing, Mark Knopfler's still out there playing. I listen to them, obviously, when they release stuff. But the only new band that is really carrying on that tradition is The Warning. And they are absolutely freaking dynamite.
I didn't tell this to Greg, but I own the complete box set of Tom Jones albums, including recent releases,
Mm-hmm.
plus autographed, you know, additional materials, um, a closet full of T-shirts, and he said jockeys, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and and um, Panther Panther print and Panther print. No, and silk. No, wait, non. What do you call it? When you don't need to iron them.
Permanent press.
Permanent press tiger. What is it? Tiger leopard print jockeys autographs and a comb. You know what's those combs with the little 3/4?
Yeah. Cake breaker. Yeah. Uh, 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 Greg, you can just swap out the name Tom Jones for ABBA. He's a ABBA head.
Yeah,
Fernando makes him cry every time.
that's right. I I actually, it's funny. I actually do like ABBA.
I don't.
Um,
I'm sorry, I don't. I'm not a 13-year-old girl.
I I I I really appreciate the Sonic, but here's the thing though. I'm interested. So, if you think of how do you get if you think of yourself like you're writing a song or you record music, um, and you hear sounds how they're put together, like the quality of what ABBA did, was not just on a technical level, because there's engineering concerns as well, mixing concerns.
Hmm.
It's not just the final product, let's say. Like it's not just like like the end product of like fandom and this and that. It's also there's also a series of people behind the production of things that have their unique skills and involvement. And so if you're interested, not that I do that anymore, but like back when I was really focused on recording, and you hear something, you say, well, wait a second, how did they produce said sound and this and that? And for ABBA, they were clean. Their sonic um tapestry was, not to mention the vocals were great, but that was clean. So yeah, so I would definitely listen to it. Or even like just there was a band that was a Cuban band actually recorded by Ry Cooder, and what he did in that recording was he captured the room environment in such a
Hmm.
way that when you put your earphones on, you can feel or you can sense, you can hear, and you can picture, because of what he did with the music, this open room with drum sounds echoing and violins and pianos, the reverberation, and you feel like you're at that presentation, at that, you know,
Hmm.
um, concert
Venue. Yeah.
or venue. And those decisions, like, so some people
Hmm.
might not like classic or traditional Cuban music, let's say, but if you're musician minded or 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 that,
Hmm.
it's no longer just about like these, like like
Well,
whether it's a sexy star or like
yeah.
this and that. It's other things too.
Ry Cooter and to an extent Todd Rundgren were two of the unsung heroes. They were behind more people becoming successful than they were successful themselves. They both had their day. Todd Rundgren did a few things. He formed a band called Utopia, but he also had a solo career. But his whole thing was doing it different and doing it his way. He produced and wrote a lot more music than he recorded. And other people recorded and had great success with his songs. Other people also relied on him in the control room and as a producer. One of the biggest albums of all time, Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Todd Rundgren produced it.
It's a
You know,
beautiful album. It's really a beautiful
it's
piece.
it really is. It's a powerful piece of music history. Very powerful piece of music history. My favorite song on that album is "The Bat Out of Hell," but I mean, all of them are. There's not a bad song on the album. Let's just say that. And that comes down to Jim Steinman and his writing, and then Meatloaf himself as a performer. But it's 100% pure theater. He said in an interview with Dan Rather asked him how he wanted to be remembered. He said, as an actor. He says, I'm an actor, and some of the characters I play can sing. And he always considered, he says, if you watch me walking around on stage in between songs, I'm dropping the character I just played in the previous song and I'm getting into the character for the next one. And he always put himself into it. And that's why all of his performances were so theatrical. So he was more of an actor than he was. He just said some of the characters he portrays can sing. That's all.
So
But
in my mind, let me see what you think. Oh, you had something. Go ahead.
no, I don't even remember where I was going and why I got over to Meatloaf. But
You were talking about Rycooter and then
oh yes, and Todd Rundgren and people like him, Jackson Brown to another extent, they were all behind the scenes making the music, but very few people have heard their names.
I got to tell you this Jackson Brown story.
Mhm.
Little old me here in Miami, Florida. This is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna just say it. I'm telling you, this is how it happened.
Okay.
When I was in California, I was tasked by the person I was living with. She told me to uh, take this thing to this person and this and that,
Mhm.
which I had never met and stuff. This lady,
Mhm.
and her name was something Brown.
Mhm.
And I drove somewhere in LA. I forget now, but it was like just a place in LA. I parked, walked up, and it was like this corner lot
Mhm.
down the street, but like the door was right there, almost on the sidewalk, just about.
Yeah.
I knocked on the door, and nothing. But I had to deliver this thing, the box, or I don't know what the hell. Nothing. I knocked again, and I guess I knocked too much because a lady covered in a robe,
Mhm.
young girl, opened the door, and she says, "What is it? I'm having sex." And I'm standing there, and I'm like, I was, you know, tasked with bringing this over to you. My name is such and such. And says, you do you know? She said, you know, I'm Jackson Brown's daughter. Like she was giving me like some order or something.
Mhm.
It felt like a scolding,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, I don't know. And I handed her the thing, and I said, okay, sorry about that. And she boom closed the door, and and then I got in my car and drove off.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and so now why she would drop that Jackson Brown? Well, I don't doubt it,
Mhm.
because
You're
that's
supposed to be impressed by that, you know.
right. And by the way, I had at that point and to this day, I've never sat through a Jackson Brown. I've heard like singles,
Mhm.
but I've never sat through one single or one full album of the. But the point was that that's
Yeah.
my connection from that
That's your
funny.
Jackson Brown story, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, it's advice, kind of like I gave Jamie Page. Sit down when you've got some time and listen to the Running on Empty album. It's a good album. It's a very, very good album.
What's it called?
Running on Empty.
Okay.
Very good album.
I think I met a few notable people. I have a picture with a lady that her name was Pam,
Hmm.
and I visited the lady and I that I was with visited her because they're friends, and I have a picture of her, and she looks like Pam Grier,
Oh, wow.
and I think she's Pam Grier, but to
Mhm.
me at that time, back in 2000,
But you didn't know who Pam Grier was.
I had no idea either way, this, that, and the
Hmm.
other. And I sat and took a picture with her. She said, "You want a picture with her?" I was like, why would I want?" And I thought to myself, "Why would I want a picture with this lady?" Like when we were there.
Hmm.
I said, "Sure," because we're all friends, this and that. And so I took and so they took a picture of me, and I have the picture.
Hmm.
Um, I think unless she's a what do you call it, a lookalike,
Hmm.
I think she was Pam Grier.
Pam Grier is now 76 years old. Do you know that?
No,
And
she
she still looks good. She
well
still looks good.
she this was 2000, so she would have been 40.
Well, she was born in 1949. Let's see, 2000.
She would have been 50s,
Um,
60s.
minus. She would have been 51.
Okay, so yeah, so I have a picture with a
Hmm.
lady on her couch in her living room
Hmm.
with a mink on her
Yeah.
and a red dress,
Mhm.
and she looks like Pam Grier. Whether or not she was Pam Grier, I can't say 100%, but I can say she looks like Pam Grier. And we were living in Beverly Hills.
Now,
So,
this brings about an interesting topic, and this was nothing that I thought about. I have heard celebrities talk in interviews that they absolutely love talking to people who've never heard of them.
of what?
Because talking to people who have never heard of them
Oh,
because they get to have real conversations. It's not people going, "Oh, I love you and I love your work and I saw this movie and this that." They get that they don't want that. They love talking to people who has no idea who they are.
right.
Like there's a video on YouTube of Jay-Z sitting down next to this woman on a subway. And of course, Jay Z goes in and sits down on a subway. People notice and this, that, the other. And this old lady, she's never heard of him. She doesn't know who this guy is.
You know that
And
I wouldn't know either.
and she's like, "What do you do, young man?" He said, "Well, I'm a singer." "Oh, do you sing well?" "Well, people seem to think so. Yeah." "Oh, okay. Well, anything I would have heard of?" "I don't know, ma'am." And just this nice old lady just sitting there talking to her. There was another one, a video I saw on YouTube of this guy. He just goes around and what he does is he stakes out areas where he knows millionaires are. And he doesn't want to harass them, but he wants to interview them and talk to them about how they became successful, why they became successful, what was their motivation in it, and if they had to mentor a young person who was coming up, what would you offer as tips for them to become successful? And so he's hanging out in front of this real swanky hotel. And this guy starts to pull out in a real sharp AMG Mercedes. And it's a convertible. And the guy just walks up to him and he introduces himself. And he says, can I talk to you about becoming successful?" And the guy's looking at the cameras and looking at everybody on him. Nobody recognizes him. It's Dave Batista, who played, oh shit, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. The big dude, I can't think of his name. the big slow guy. Oh my God, Linda, help me out. Dave Batista. Anyway, um, and the guy doesn't recognize him. And he asks him, he says, okay, well, what do you do for a living? He says, well, I'm an entertainer. He says, are you a successful entertainer? He says, well, yeah, I think so. He says, okay. And, he starts interviewing this guy, 20 minutes with him and has no idea who he is. Drax. Thank you, Linda. Dave Batista, who played Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. And Guardians of the Galaxy had been out. I think number 2 was out as well. This guy has no clue who he's talking to. And Batista, you can see a few smiles here and there. This guy has no clue who I am. But this is cool. He gives him a good interview and tells him, well, you got to be passionate. You got to want to do what you're doing because you want to. You can't fake that. You can't fake the passion for it. And this, that, and the other. It gives him a good, clean interview. And finally says, okay, well, thank you, Mr. Batista. I appreciate that. And he pulls away. And he has no idea who the hell he's talking to. That is, to me, fun. I think that's hilarious because you get the real person. This is not somebody who's trying to put on and make a good face for themselves because Hollywood. This is a person being real. And I think that's a rare thing coming out of that industry. You know, it's also interesting to see a performer not as a performer, but as a real person. Anybody can ask what's the next movie you're going to make. But to ask if you were going to mentor somebody on how to be successful, what would you tell them? That's a little bit different.
Interesting. Yeah, the big hefty guy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
From
the big guy with all the tattoos and everything else on him and whatever. Drax. Yeah, it was him. And you could see, like I said, you could see a few smiles. This guy has no idea who he's talking to. He has no idea who I am. But he held it together and gave the guy good, concise answers, and he went along with the interview. It looked like he was having fun. I think that kind of thing is cool. I think it's really cool. I think celebrities should do that kind of thing more often. I think celebrities that use their celebrity for good purposes, I think are doing it right.
So let me throw this celebrity moment out from my perspective,
Hmm.
being as truthful to the thing, but through the lens of my perspective of
Sure.
the experience. When working at Gator Park, out in the Florida Everglades, at the end of the day, one day,
Hmm.
after everything was said and done, we had drank our beers out front, sitting hanging out for a while. That particular evening, the sun was still out, but it was setting, so there was that orangey color
Yeah.
that comes across. I get in my car, and at the same time as we're all leaving, the ones of us that work there that were taking off, a car stopped and sat at the picnic tables, and they put out like their little picnic stuff. It was in the
Uh-huh.
afternoon,
Yeah.
and I got in my. You have to understand the setting. Um, we're all sure we're dressed in uniforms, but
Hmm.
we're very rugged looking,
Hmm.
like very rugged looking people. Even with our uniforms, like we look like we just came out of the frickin' swamp. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like you're getting ready to wrestle an alligator at any moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Like like rough around the edges type
Mhm.
guys. That's just the impression.
Yeah.
Um, and I get in my car, but I stop to look because I see all these people,
Mhm.
and we're all sunburned. We're
Yeah.
all crisp, dark,
Ready to go home. Yeah.
burly, and hairy.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally look like we came crawling out of the.
Mhm.
Um, and there's just these very clean,
Mhm.
very untouched
Mhm.
by. the sun,
Yeah.
nature, the weathering of the temperature and the rain, and
Yeah, they spend a lot of time indoors, yeah.
yeah, or a controlled, climatized environment.
Yeah.
You know how our skin, like, you know, these lines didn't just
Mhm.
happen. Sure, it's age, but you just,
Yeah.
the point is, even back then, I mean,
And
you
life
know,
outdoors, yeah.
yeah. So, and they look so clean and so, and I looked, and this woman there with blonde hair,
Mhm.
and I just stared at her. I was staring because I was looking at them before I take off, but she caught my eyes and I caught hers in a magical moment of eye to eye
Mhm.
from across the parking lot, just close enough to see each other.
Mhm.
And she had this face of like, so picture this blonde girl, just just pale as can be,
Mhm.
sensitive, like, be careful where you step because you'll just discombobulate.
Yeah.
She looked like a china doll, let's say,
Mhm.
porcelain. Be careful, don't breathe on her because she'll blow over. She was very out of place.
Yeah.
And we caught eye to eye, and she had this look on her face, like, um, let's put it this way: imagine a human with a deer in the headlight look,
Yeah.
just like
Scared.
waiting for the truck to ram you.
Yeah.
She
Just
had that.
scared. Out of her element and scared and didn't know how to handle it, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she looked like.
Mhm.
And she was a famous
Mhm.
actress. Um, and I recognize her face.
Mhm.
And to this day, like, she's in a truckload of movies.
Mhm.
And to this day, I have no freaking clue what her actual name is. I've
Mhm.
seen her in movies,
Seen her face, but
seen her face, but I have not, because it was that sort of thing where
yeah.
maybe it's too many of the
Yeah.
love movie type things or this or that,
Mhm.
like, that matches that kind of
Chick
thing.
flicks, yeah.
Yeah, like chick flicks.
Yep.
And so, but the point is that I can name, like, people that I've met that are notable, actors and such and this and that, and she's one of them, but that I can't name
Yeah.
till this freaking day.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to find a picture of her and let us know who it was.
But in order to do that,
Mhm.
I have to find a movie she was in to see
Well,
her.
I mean, but you'll see her eventually and go, "Oh, that's her." You know?
Right. I'll single it out when I do.
Okay.
But she's one of
Yep.
those up and comers from the early 2000s that
Mhm.
kind of like, let me see, was it Reese? What
Reese
makes
Witherspoon?
Reese Witherspoon? Let me see. Yeah, that was her.
Reese Witherspoon?
Yep.
Southern California girl. Okay. But she was just completely out of place. She had no idea what was going on. Just deer in the headlights look, huh?
No idea what was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And she has been in a lot of those chick flicks, right?
Oh yeah. She's been in a lot of movies.
Okay,
Well,
so then that,
that's actually kind of funny. She's a Southern girl, so I don't know how out of place she really was. Hmm.
in exactly the ways that I explained, she looked, well, she's
Mhm.
from Louisiana,
Yeah.
but she looked just fragile from my, but
Mhm.
again, the contrast that I'm telling you, that was my experience, but whatever.
Yeah, Jim Dockrell says he prefers Reese without her spoon, so that's all right.
I prefer Reese's Pieces.
Yeah. Mm. Yep, you and
You get it
Greg,
with the swamp.
you and Greg on that. You've got that whole um, Prince thing
Put
going.
We've got that whole, it puts the lotion in the basket.
Yeah, you got that whole Nigerian Prince thing going again.
Well, no, if you think about the
Well,
joke, it is macabre, but if you think
mhm,
about it, we're in the swamp. These people are like all properly, like, just,
Dressed and tuxed and everything else, and
and we're it's almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like if I
yeah, are you fixing to jump out of that car with a machete?
because if you think about it in the context of like we're
Mhm,
visiting some place, like it's like if I'm driving somewhere in the middle of nowhere, let's say out in Texas, and come up on a farmhouse,
mhm,
and there's like, oh, we ran out of gas, and there's like a guy in overalls with
mhm,
like or like a butcher's thing on with blood on it, and
mhm.
you're just walking like casually, and like how they do in those movies, like
How
so.
can I help you?
Right. So now, if I had never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Mhm,
that me going there
mhm,
I would have no reference point to say, no, he's just butchering animals and this is what they do. We're in a farm. But now that exists in terms of
mhm.
like the movie, you have ideas
Oh,
floating around
yeah.
that,
What am I getting into? This is not a good idea.
yeah, we
Ruby
might as
slippers,
well
I don't
just walk to the
here.
gas station.
Yeah, ruby slippers, I don't wanna be here.
But
Nope,
am I wrong? Isn't that the
there's
impression?
no, that exactly, that's I mean, but see, that's what media does to us, man. There's it's there to give you that kind of impression, you know? It's there to give you that kind of impression. I don't know, but when I was talking about celebrities using their celebrity status for the good, I'm talking about guys like Johnny Depp who will dress up in full character like Captain Jack Sparrow and go visit kids in the hospital. I think that's noble. I really do because we're talking about kids in the hospital. Some of them terminal. To do something like that, I think that's an honorable thing to me. And I think that's how celebrities should be used is to help other folks, you know.
Well,
And
uh,
some celebrities do remember their roots. I've heard many, many stories. You find them on YouTube all over the place. The Keanu Reeves is one of the most humble, down to earth guys that you'll ever meet. Runs several charity foundations without his name being on it because he doesn't want anybody to know he does it, you know. But it's like when you make more money than you will ever be able to spend, what are you going to do with it?
take
And
it with you.
some folks try, others just give it away.
You put it in you put it you open up a hole,
Hmm.
you pay for it, and on either side you
Hmm.
build these what do you call it, a safes,
Hmm.
and you gild them with
Hmm.
all the things that represent you, and you stuff them with $1 bills. And if you're that rich, you stuff them with $100 bills or write yourself a check.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
and you put, no, listen, and then you put a little funnel thing. Have you ever seen when you go to the bank, you put those air compressed, those plastic,
oh yeah, them with the vacuum tube.
the vacuum tube. And what you do is, you once covered up,
Hmm.
there's a tube next to your grave, and the bank, and you've a 100 years
Hmm.
contract that the bank has to come and place a check in that tube that goes down into.
Hmm. Yeah, or they can just give you a check for the full amount. You know, yeah.
No,
Some folks they just keep collecting interest and they keep building up their wealth, and you get to a point. It's like, look, I can't spend all this in a lifetime. What am I going to do with it? Give it away. Help somebody out. You know, there's somebody struggling to make their mortgage payment right now because they got laid off. To me. That's what the right thing to do with celebrity.
it's
It
to
really
it's
is.
charitable.
Yeah, is to help other people. Through
Well,
through through no fault of their own. They're just going through a rough patch.
then I would vote for you for office then, because if that's the case. However,
Well,
here's the problem with that.
mhm,
Once I vote you because of your sentiments, which are noble and I think justified, reasonable, and correct, um, like flat out.
mhm,
But here's the problem with that: your goodwill towards fellow man, humanity, once placed in a position of decisions change the affect the lives of so many,
mhm.
even the best intentions creates potential or inevitable um, consequences. So even the best of it, you know how it's they say,
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, yeah. But
right?
we're gonna go that direction, are we? Okay.
No, I
I
just threw
think
that
that
out.
I think that that depends upon the person because uh-oh, your camera shut off.
No, I hear you. I'm just
Okay, because that depends upon the person. There must have been something in that person like that already because to think otherwise, what you're basically saying is that humans can't resist temptation.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
And well, no, that may not be what you're saying, but to make that inference that well, I would vote for you because you have the best of intentions, but once you get there, things go, yeah, but that depends on the person you're putting in there.
No, no,
That's and that's why I mean there must have been something within that person that was already headed in that direction for it to be that easy for them to succumb.
okay. So let me answer that. I agree and disagree at the same time, in a contradiction apparent but not. So it matters not that you have good intentions.
Mhm.
Okay, let me rephrase that. The fact that you have good intentions, which I recognize in your statement, and you show that since we've known each other in
Mhm.
your actions towards others and the way you consider people's problems and just a whole series
Mhm.
of things. Just all that being granted and a given without any conflict in itself. In other words, affirmed.
Mhm.
Um, but you are not, nor am I, or anybody immune from the concept that I was trying to get across, but maybe I didn't
Mhm.
clarify, which I will now. No matter your good intentions, or my good intentions, or the next person's good intentions,
Mhm.
from our position now, whatever that might be in life, that's not like a position of power as I was suggesting.
Mhm.
That station in life now with that sentiment
Mhm.
can be transferred over to that next position in a position of power where you
Mhm.
have to make broader decisions.
Right.
You are still that person with those intentions because you were brought up with them, you
Mhm.
grew into them, you find them of value just intrinsically to yourself. It's part of your construction of how you
Mhm.
see the world. But once you're in a position of power, your decisions not only affect many people, well, actually, that's the point, but not only is it that you're making decisions that affect many people, but decisions at that level where a choice to help one set of circumstances will better them. There is opposite and collateral um,
Mhm. Every
ca-
action, yes.
casualties,
Mhm.
so that this person with good intentions, because of the position that they're now in, that does wholesale, broad stroke decisions that affect many in different ways.
Understood. But that's where strength of character comes in because you always have the ability to say no. You always have the ability to say no. And if you're true to yourself, you know right from wrong. If you know helping these 500 people is going to hurt these 10,000 people, I'm sorry, 500 people. We'll try something else. You always have the option to say no.
But what I'm
But then
saying,
again, what I'm saying is that piece of you that's willing to let's just say it, be bought or be pressured or be lobbied into making decisions that way. I'm going to make a decision that's going to be beneficial to you because you're going to pay me 200,000 to come over and do a 10-minute speech at your company's annual barbecue. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll come over and I'll do that. And oh, by the way, you want me to vote for this bill because it'll build a bridge and make your trucks be able to deliver the product faster. Right, I get it. Okay, I'll vote for that. Yeah, sure. Regardless of whether we need it. That's where it takes something like that to even run for office. It takes we complain about greed with our politicians. It takes a bit of greed to even want that job. It takes a bit of that. Everything we're thinking of, everything that everybody is thinking of that's negative with a politician, it takes that to even want that job. And that just ain't me. I don't want to
Well,
be a leader.
no, but well, look. So my the reason I so
I get your broader point. I do get your broader point.
what is my broader claim?
Well, when you get into positions of power, it's easy to have good intentions to maybe help somebody out, but there for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. There are unintended consequences down the road that are going to hurt other people.
Or at the same time?
Right. And that's what I mean by you have to be true to yourself. You have to have strength of character to maybe say, wait a minute. Yeah, we're helping this group over here, but we're damaging this group over here. And I can't do that with a clear conscience.
But what I'm saying beyond that, though, that okay,
Hmm.
that's true. You captured the essence of it. But what I'm saying beyond that, based on the position,
Hmm.
there are going to be numerous, as we've seen throughout history,
Oh, sure.
numerous, regardless of whether the person is good or bad. We're in this scenario, we're thinking of the person as good, but now they're in a position of power. We're
Hmm.
not thinking that the person is bad going to a position. In this particular thought
Hmm.
experiment, the person is good, but now he's elevated into a situation where his choices um, can affect pro and con different groups and different levels and so on. My further um, um, reasoning is that maybe not all situations, but enough of them, you make a choice here or you don't, or you make a choice here and you don't in order to avoid that. Whatever the choice you choose, someone is going to be adversely affected and other
Oh,
people
sure.
are not. There are going to
Well,
be situations like that.
that's the nature of the beast. You're
Exactly.
going to have to make those decisions. Yeah.
Exactly. And from the point of view of one, that good person
Hmm.
now in a position of power, they now have to hold and accept and reason
Yes.
that their choice, whereas
Hmm.
when they were a regular old Joe or Jill
Hmm.
out in the world, they saw the grocery bill that an old lady couldn't pay, and so Jill came over and said, "No, no, ma'am, here you go." Or like
Hmm.
somebody
Yeah.
fell, they picked up like those minimal. They're not minimal, but at scale compared to what I'm talking about now,
Yeah.
those are sort of like
Well,
controllable, scalable, good-willed actions.
well, look,
Wait, no,
you are.
let me build the thing. In those good-willed actions of a smaller scale, in terms
Hmm.
of like you're affecting that
I get
individual.
it.
In that case, there's no adverse if you do it or not. Like there's no
Right.
necessarily. But in this position, you now have to live with the consequences of making a decision that's in
Yes.
between good and bad.
And you have to know that going in that that's going to be that's going to be part of the process that you are going to be put in that position. And if you're not ready to make those decisions, you're not ready to do the job.
And it's not all peaches and cream when you think about if the person is a good-willed person to begin with. But if it's what you said that, well, you need to be a good-willed person. If not, you started out rotten, so you're just going from rotten to a position of more power and more rot.
Hmm.
In that scenario that you're explaining, fine, yes, of course. But in this scenario where we're saying, well, no, the person starts off as good,
Hmm.
but now they're in a
But
position of power, and
well,
they have to make decisions that when they were in a normal environment,
they
they,
wouldn't have to make. Yeah.
and they would have had an issue trying to decide because I do
Well,
this.
and again, if you don't have the strength of character to know that going in, and you don't have the ability to make those hard decisions, then you're not right for the job. You have to know that's going to be part of the job going in, or don't do it.
Right. So now, you know, those decisions at that level are always paradoxical.
Sure.
Or not always, but in the ways that they are, in terms of like when you're making a decision, it's like turning on a valve and turning it off, and it's got two different lines. If you switch it this way, the whatever flows in one direction but not the other.
Mhm.
If you do it half and half, in certain instances that can work. In other instances, maybe not. I mean, just like stuff like that,
Sure.
as a sort of like a.
But that's what leadership is. Leadership can be broken down into many, many levels, and some people are just not leaders. Some people are bad leaders. They can talk a good line, but when it comes to doing the actual work and being a good trainer, a good leader, a good coworker, they just don't cut it. They think it's a power thing. Yes, I'm the supervisor, therefore what I say goes. No, screw you. You are the supervisor, but you're still going to go in there and mop the bar, or you're still going to go out there and clean ashtrays. You're still one of the crew. It is your job to make sure the job gets done, and you're going to delegate certain jobs. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do the other. But that doesn't mean you stand back with your hands on your hips. If you're that kind of leader, I got no use for you. But if you're the kind of leader who's there to inspire, be a team player, and make sure the team succeeds, that's the kind of supervisor I want. The best answer I ever got on a job interview. I asked a guy, we had to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he said, sitting behind your desk interviewing new employees when you move up into higher management. And I'm like, oh, good answer. Good answer. And he was like, yeah, I want your job. And I'm going to do everything I can to get your job when you move up out of it. Good answer. I liked that. So, anyway, I don't know. Yes, certain positions are going to require you to make some decisions that other people are not going to like. But if you're not prepared for that, then you're just in the wrong position. You shouldn't be in that leadership role. So,
I kind of like the. Then again, but I'll say it anyways. There's always a secondary and third and fourth and fifth alternative,
mhm,
but I kind of lean from my position, from my view, unrealistically perhaps, I don't know. Well, in practice, it's unrealistic as has been practiced. But if you think of, so like, the Greeks, the ancients,
mhm,
Plato, um, these people tended towards the idea
mhm.
of philosopher kings as
Okay.
the ideal um, leaders, because there was questions of morality.
Mhm.
If you have no morality, um, a value system, and the idea is sort of like, I guess, now this is my interpretation, but like, totally, but like, the ends justify the means type of. So like, if you have something I want, um, whether we're friends or not, let's say, to that level, if my values are the ends justify the means, that means that there's nothing that at my disposal, that I won't use or won't consider
Mhm.
as appropriate, because there is
Yeah.
no question, in order
Yeah.
to get what I want, even be manipulate, like that kind of thing.
Sure, you can challenge me, and we meet on the field of battle. And if you win, you win the spoils. You not only defeat me, but all of my possessions now become yours.
Right, or even with the ends justify the means concept, And there's a little bit of that in everything because at the end. So, but anyways, let's not even get into that. Just say, um, with the ends justify the means. It's a hill going down into the abyss
Hmm.
if if value, principles like the ones that we like the ones that we let's call it at the societal level. Let's in this particular case, let's call it at the American societal level
Hmm.
broadly,
Yeah.
based on the things that we've
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. I get it. I
No,
get it.
no, it's important to say these things, even though it's what we've been taught. The value systems generalized. If if we're willing to sacrifice those, because the ends justify the means, and if it's at the level of a position of power, um, the Greeks were so in particular Plato. They were looking to philosopher kings where these things were. It's kind of like in the Bible where they take the baby, the lady brings the baby and says, "That's my baby," but another woman says, "No, that's my baby." And King Solomon was like, "You're
We
saying
divide it in
your
half.
child?" And she says, "It's my child." And then the other lady, "Yes, it's my child," because they wanted
Mhm.
the value of the child because
Yeah.
of the person that was the father. So he says, "Fine, since both of you are say claim you're the mothers, and I can't find discover how, we will cut the child in half and hand you each half, and the problem will be solved." And the real mother
Hmm.
launched in front and said, "No, no, no, she can have it," because she would rather preserve
Hmm.
the child, even if she didn't get to keep her
Hmm.
son.
Yeah.
She would rather her son live with someone else than to die.
Hmm.
And that we can put next to, I don't know, let's say the United States. And
Hmm.
what's that child? That child, from my vantage point, is the thread that binds, not because of it in itself, but because of the freedom that it allows us, which is our founding documents. Um, that that is the child that we don't want divided. But this idea of handing it over doesn't play well in this parallel here. But the point is, um, this idea of wisdom and stuff from the position of power, it's a good. But even so, they have to make decisions that are that raw,
Hmm.
where blood
Yeah.
will be spilled.
Yeah.
And you're right.
Oh,
I don't see how most people in my mind. I think um, that kind of responsibility
yeah.
and burden,
Hmm.
man.
Don't
I,
want it. Don't want it. Jim Dockrell, whoops, there it is. Um, he said King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. He had other things on his mind and was in a hurry. Yeah, well, that's, mainly when was the bathroom going to be free? Absolutely. With that many women, you're going to get a 2-minute shower and it's going to be cold. So, you know.
well,
But
that
that is the case. They have discovered that the reason women live longer than men is because they're not married to women. That's why.
and it's funny, but like let's say I don't know if those numbers are right or referenced,
Mhm,
but let's say they are. If what Jim said is correct, and I think I've heard that before, but I don't know. I'd have to. But
mhm,
if that's correct, that means that the potential that King Solomon is our daddy
mhm.
is exponentially high. And
Yeah.
when I say our daddy, I don't mean like I, Dockrell, descend directly through the paternal line in a infused direct. No,
Mhm,
I mean out of all the branches of ancestors, because
mhm.
of the world being that much smaller
Yep.
in terms of population, in one of those placements on your tree, King
Yeah.
Solomon would be sitting there, and one of those
Yeah.
mothers, or maybe few of them, various ones of them, would be
Mhm.
your mother's as well.
That's why you say when people that who's your daddy? King Solomon. And if not him, Charlemagne.
Well, no, no, that's
Charlemagne
later.
Charlemagne would be a great name for a cologne.
For a what?
A cologne, a men's cologne.
Oh,
Charlemagne. Yeah, it would. And then the slogan could be I'm everybody's daddy.
think of people like Washington. He sure did go and battle like nobody's business. He went against the he fought in the French and Indian War. Um,
Lost a lot of battles, but won the war.
he made a lot of bad decisions,
Yes, he did.
even pre Revolutionary War,
Yeah.
Continental Army.
Hmm.
He, he so there was controversy in his time because he had made a decision with his men and it was a problem. This and that. Anyways, even George Washington carrying all that weight through his life. Um, and if you think of the
And
choices he made,
and he hated it.
well, that's where I'm getting. Well, so just where I'm getting at is that when at the height of power, he decided on something that down the line, as far as I
Mhm.
can tell, has been unheard of.
Yeah.
He basically declined.
Yeah. He stepped down after 2 terms, and that set the precedent. That
He
set the
declined,
precedent. Yep.
and he was even suggested. They even wanted to make him king.
Yes. Yeah. His Royal Highness. Yes. Or His Majesty. And he hated it. He didn't want to do it. He had to be talked into it. And then run for reelection. He had to be talked into that. And then after 2 terms, he said, "No, that's it. No man should do this more than 2 terms." And he said no. But at the time, they didn't know if he was going to run for a third term. But when he finally did decide, no, I'm not running for a third term, no man should run more than 2 terms for this. The job is too much. And
Now,
he left, and that set that precedent, and that followed until FDR. And FDR said, nah, screw that noise. And it came to the point to where under Harry Truman's administration in, I want to say 52,
yeah,
they amended the Constitution to a president can have 2 terms.
yeah,
That's
because
it.
that's too much. I mean, it's just too much. But if you think of in throughout history and just in that, the decisions that these people in these positions of power are, they affect the people at the time differently depending on
Yeah.
their position in that situation. Even allies,
Hmm.
you can be an ally on the same team um, and disagree fundamentally,
Hmm.
as did happen, and it's just so many cases. Um, but that's the nature of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But here's the something has to be measured. Actions have to be measured against
Hmm.
some sort of principle. In our particular case, and it's there's around the world, but there's these constitutional guardrails
Hmm.
that prevent people in positions of power from going beyond
Hmm.
their
Their
role,
scope, yeah, their role, yeah,
and that's key. Um,
sure.
so with that said, to me, that's kind of like the mother valuing the baby.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I
can
don't,
see that.
yeah, but I don't. What I don't know about that analogy
Hmm.
is the how her decision. How would I work it that her decision to give it up well, you could
Well, that's easy. That's easy. The peaceful exchange of power. After an election, during an inauguration, a president steps down and another president takes over. Or when there's a change in the the House majority, and the speaker is now the opposition. It's
And
a
you know what?
peaceful exchange of power.
Okay, and here's another good one too. At least from my, and I think it's, you know, perfectly aligned with. But to further that, because that's a good, that put it more on the ground for me. It footed it well.
Well,
Well, no, let me. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
look at other countries. I mean, how many people in a powerful position will voluntarily step down, whether they were elected to that position or not? Because it would be very easy for a president as commander in chief to just say, no, I'm not leaving. If you can get past the US Marines, go for it.
Yeah.
You know?
So the other version that I was thinking, as an answer to the baby, the mother giving up the baby in order to preserve its life. Um, Another version of that is at the individual level of a citizen, recognizing that baby being the line in the sand,
Hmm.
where when you butt up against another person, their
Hmm.
rights begin and yours at that very moment cease to, not for yourself, but the boundary of their life, of their wallet, of their free conscience,
Well,
of their thoughts, good, bad, indifferent that they may be, of that person, living human being. Once you butt up against the rights of that individual, it is done. Your rights cease to. That concept is also, at least for me, I'm applying it
well,
to this, is also preserving the baby and not wanting to cut it up.
but see, I have a different take on that. I see that everybody's rights is important. Your rights don't override mine, and my rights don't override yours. They're equally important, and I see that as the that baby
Did you just
that we
reword my
can
thing?
both. Well, I didn't see that because you're saying that. Well, your rights cease when they come up against mine.
Yeah.
No, my rights don't cease, but my rights are not more important than yours.
Yeah, but wait a second, Mark. I guess, Mark, you just took what I said
Mhm.
and you reimagined it. Fair enough, but it's like the exact same thing that I said, because even though I said that my rights cease, what I mean is that my rights to do whatever the hell I want stop at your doorstep. It's basically
Oh
the
yes. Oh, definite. Your right to swing
yeah,
your fist ends at my nose.
yeah. We're saying the
But
same
that
thing.
but that doesn't mean my rights override yours.
No,
I can
no,
always step back. That's the thing that people have to accept is that they're equally important. So when you see people screaming, "Well, what about my rights?" Well, what about my rights? You know, you don't seem to give a damn about mine, so why should I seem to give a damn about yours?
that's where the problem is.
They're equal. Yours don't take precedent over mine, and mine don't take precedent over yours.
Right.
They're equal. So let's calm down, have some spinach dip, and let's have a discussion. You know?
Or not. Even if the person doesn't want to engage, um, as long
Well,
as they don't try to,
then
as long as they don't try to trample over. So the whole concept
yeah,
is
if they don't want to engage, fine, don't engage.
right, right. The whole
Just
concept with the baby,
mhm,
in this application of it, because
mhm,
the your first go to, which helped me think of in this direction, but was that you can think of the baby and not hurting it and
mhm,
giving it up, in order to preserve its life, as a transition of power.
mhm,
I thought that was a great example. There can be many examples of that in the context of,
mhm,
and this idea of individual, um, rights between human beings, um, the recognition that,
mhm,
let me take it a step further, but we're still within the guardrails of it. Um, the moment that you decide to impose your will on another person, now, I'm not talking about conversation,
mhm,
argumentation, um, and that kind of stuff. I'm not talking
mhm,
about that. We have the right to back and forth and this and that. Like, our feelings are not protected.
mhm.
You know,
Right.
so let's we have feelings, but those are not protected because we can always disassociate and all this and that.
Sure.
Um, w- but but the act. of me deciding to trample over another person's rights. In other words, I want to commit fraud on them, as an example.
Mhm.
That is a theft action,
Sure.
and that is a violation
And that's why we have laws against it.
that represents the freedoms, right? So like, look, freedom to be safe. So like, things that we have, like, the right to be safe in our, we have the right to be safe in our possessions or things, in our homes.
Mhm.
People can't, you know, decide from the military, oh, we're going to station ourselves here, like that kind of stuff that's there that seems,
Mhm.
antiquated. It goes beyond just like this military action and stuff. It's also that, like, hey, when the boundary of your home, like, that's the boundary of your home, and people can't just do as they will, but
Yep.
it extends to your wallet when you're out in the street, wherever you're at. I mean, just, all these things. And so there's also implications to, it's what I'm getting at is this. That it's not an abs it might be viewed as abstract and antiquated, the constitution, and let's not even say it could be any constitution of any country, just whatever the laws of their countries are. When people decide to, um, laws that reference the right of individuals to respect the bodily autonomy of individuals, which is actually the principle that we have here, in theory or in law, but not in practice all the time. um, when people decide on that, they're actually doing something worse than what they think that they're doing. They're not attacking, Bob, McIntyre from across the way because they just wanted his scooter.
Mhm.
They're not just doing that. Yes, they're just doing that in their mind. But what they're doing is they're saying, you know, I'm going to take what I want,
Yeah.
even if it's from Mr.
And
Mac.
to hell with Mr. McIntyre, exactly.
And what they're doing is they're they're basically, tearing that child in half at that moment. They're not doing, I'm giving up, because you can want that frickin' scooter. Sure, anybody can want that beautiful
Mhm.
scooter sitting on the park, um,
And
but
you have every right to every scooter you purchase,
exactly,
but that's where your rights end.
100%. It's unfortunate, or actually, it's fortunate. But like to say, if you're if you're tempted, it's unfortunate you can't just grab everything you want.
No.
It is unfortunate
You
because,
can
hey, if,
and it is the case. We have said this many, many times. You can believe what you want, but you can't do what you want.
and that's the thing. Unless you're willing to if you can get away with it, you've still done the act that that person that wasn't the mother of the child
Mhm.
was willing to let King Solomon do. I like this
Yeah.
analogy. It works, and it all sprang from your letting go of power when the transition occurs and stuff. And now we have. I kind of like that. I like it because it's bridging two different,
Well,
things.
Jim Dockra has a great comment over here. You have the right to say almost anything you want. That does not mean anyone has to listen. Absolutely. You have the right to say pretty much anything you want, but you don't have the right to be listened to. And you can't demand others listen to you. You can have any opinion you want, but you do not have the right to demand I conform to that opinion.
Well, we have autonomy,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but
And your right to speak does not override my right to walk away because I don't like what I'm hearing you say. That's all there
but
is to it.
but what is the context in which, because that I think that the listening part, um, implies that I don't understand the context of that one. Can he,
Okay.
elaborate on
You,
what the context of that is?
you
Like,
have,
throw an example.
well, the First Amendment rights. You have the right to say almost anything you want. Think of the soapbox preachers on the corner. They have the right to stand up there on their soapbox and preach the gospel to every passerby. But every passerby has the right to just pass by and not listen.
Right, but my question is, no, I understand what it. I understand the, the concept of we don't I don't have to listen, because I do that all the time.
Yeah,
If I hear it, even when I'm watching a video, if I don't like it, I switch the channel and I'm done.
exactly.
So it's the same principle. What I'm saying is that why did Jim feel that that's an important point to make, and what's a real life implication?
Just a general observation on rights.
Yeah, but what's the
We That's what we were talking about. We were talking about one person's rights don't trump another person's rights. They're both equally important.
yeah, but I don't understand how. So, for instance, when we were talking about
Mhm.
the motor scooter, that's a physical, tangible item,
Well, but
and that the action.
you also have to remember there's about a 1 minute delay. What we're saying right this very minute, they won't hear for 30 seconds. And then when they
Okay,
type their response, it's going to take 30 seconds to get back to us.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what they're commenting on happened a minute ago.
No, 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 no. I know, but I'm mentioning something that happened a minute or 2 minutes or three ago, which is the scooter example. Let me make my example and see
Okay.
where Jim goes with this. In our scooter example, there was a theft potential or theft that took place where somebody just wanted the property of this guy across the Mr. McCormick, I think
Mm,
it was, or whatever.
whatever. That's good enough.
Um, um,
Not
and they
that
went and took it because they felt like it and they took it. This is a physical thing. I want to know, just out of curiosity, see what happens. Because there has to be something behind it, and if there's not, then well, okay. But I want to know what's the example of this forced listening that Jim is suggesting, as because he included listening, but what is an example of forced listening?
Uh, well, basically he says he was saying, and remember, you can see when they posted this comment. Your rights not do not oblige anyone to do anything is what, and his comment about you have the right to say almost anything was 8 minutes ago. So
Oh,
we weren't talking about the motor scooter yet. We were still talking about, you know, your rights don't trump my rights, and they're equally important when he made
okay.
that
So
comment.
the timeline is scrambled, but now that we're
Yeah.
here at this moment, I would
Mhm.
like to know if because he then further said, who knows what the timeline is? What is the importance either way, or what is the physical manifestation of someone imposing you to listen on them?
Well,
On the,
I don't know that he has an example where he was forced to listen to anything unless we're talking about when you're 7 and you're dragged to church and don't want to go.
yeah.
But well, because it's as he said, it was just a general observation on rights. He was kind of repeating what you and I were saying.
Okay, well, if it's yeah,
So,
we don't have.
but then again, I don't know. Maybe he was talking about Ronnie Montrose with Sammy Hagar on vocals. That's possible. He was talking about that bad motor scooter.
Well, yeah. So look, fine. We instinctively know, or we were trained that way because we grew up. We don't have
Mhm.
to listen to the music or shows or
No,
news or read the papers, or
exactly.
we don't have to do none of that. And in
Eh,
fact,
mhm.
most of the time, if you think, well, who knows? But like, let's say, um, uh, we don't even have the ability to everything that everybody would want us to listen to.
Yeah,
It is impossible to do that anyhow.
dude, exactly. My right to play my music ends at your living room. If my music is disturbing you, I'm in the wrong. I can always put on a set of headphones and blast it as loud as I want to. But if I'm becoming an annoyance to you or other neighbors, I'm in the wrong, you know? And that's just all there is to it. I have the right to play my music, but not when you can't hear Jimmy Swaggart on TV.
Yeah, there's and this whole thing of the tension and all that is at our level of like regular citizens,
Hmm.
and whatever,
Well,
but at the level of like public officials that are tasked with big time decisions and stuff, the stakes
yeah.
are, I mean, you could argue also that the stakes are as big here in principle, but in results
Hmm.
it's much different. Me and my neighbor having a dispute over loud salsa music,
Hmm.
which is actually a real thing that's happened, and I don't want to jinx it. So, um, I've told you about it in the past. It's just
Yeah.
annoying as hell, dude. It's really bad. Um, the stakes are different, even as inconvenienced as I am, really badly inconvenienced in that scenario,
Hmm.
because they're forcing me to listen. That's a good answer for Jim's thing. That's a place where they're forcing me to listen because of volume.
Hmm.
Um, um, and that goes into ordinances and city stuff and whatever.
Exactly.
It's much different at impact level in terms of like the masses, let's say,
Hmm.
from that to like higher up, like decision making, where a whole slew of people here are adversely affected because the decision and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes. Now, Greg has a question, and I was going to type my answer. Are there headphones for bagpipes so you don't annoy your neighbors? Actually, yes, Greg. My wife has a set of them. They're made by a company called Fagerstrom, and they are electronic bagpipes. You plug in a set of headphones, and you can sit there and pipe your little heart out, and you are the only one that can hear it.
You can't even hear the block.
Un- until until I unplug that headset and I plug in my Roland Cube amp and turn on the amp and turn it up and play around with gain and things like that. Then it really annoys the neighbors because, when you amplify them, they go to 11. But yes, there are, you can put on headphones on the pipes so you don't annoy your neighbors.
So we kind of solved Jim's. You don't have to listen to, but but the problem is with that one. What
So
it
Linda says so far the neighbors are okay with it. I haven't been shot at yet. Not once. Not once.
the,
But
the
she is known as the crazy bagpipe lady.
the difference between the motor scooter example and this audio example
Hmm.
with bagpipes and salsa music and
Hmm.
just neighbors and all that is that funny enough, um,
Well,
this
they're similar.
well they're similar in that there's an imposition, but hold on, um, the theft of a motorcycle is often viewed as a more degree wise a more outrageous thing than
Well,
somebody playing their disco music, but even still it's still a fundamental breakage of like civility.
you obviously have never been subjected to 4 straight hours of KC in the Sunshine Band.
For
Yes.
I've done
You
at
can
least half an hour for free.
you cannot you can only hear that's the way uh-huh I like it so many times without losing your marble. And on that happy note, why don't we land the plane?
Okay, let me just offer you the story
Sure.
that I wanted to offer you before we
Okay.
land. I saw an article, or actually a news clip
Mhm.
from Valencia, Spain, the autonomous community of Valencia, um, where the report was the following: a man had been ev- e- eventually found in his apartment after 15 years of all his neighbors on the block saying, "Oh, he's just a hermit. Um, yeah, he doesn't hang out much. He's a great guy, and this and that." For 15 years, until water in the apartment below
Mhm.
was filtering through the ceiling, and they had to come in and make repairs, and so they had to go up through the second building above, where the
Mhm.
man had been passed away for 15 years. Nobody knew.
Nobody checked and nobody knocked on the
He
door
had
and nothing.
he had children.
Oh my god.
Check this out. He had children. 15 years had passed. The government kept sending him retirement checks for 15 years because somehow in Spain
Yeah.
they don't do life checks and this and that. And I don't know this, that, and the other. So he was still collecting checks. All his neighbors, because in Spain, and just like much parts of Europe, they sit in cafes and hang out and stuff and this and that. He just not be there, and people, oh well, he's kind of a hermit type guy. And this 15 years.
15 years. I can give neighbors a partial pass in that they don't know. I venture to say your neighbors don't know your life. I know my neighbors don't know my life. So they don't know if I'm home. They can tell when the car's gone, but they don't know if my daughter came and picked me up and took me somewhere. They don't know what's going on. Why would they? I said something to Linda. That's been a few weeks back now. It's before her surgery. I hadn't seen one neighbor out in a while. Have you seen anybody? Well, yeah, they have somebody that comes by every morning and checks on them. They're an elderly couple. I'm like, yeah, but I haven't seen him out of the house. I wonder if he's doing okay. Sure as hell, 2 days later, he's out in the front yard. It's like, okay, all right, he's getting around. He's doing okay. This kind of hits home with me because my uncle, my dad's brother, he passed away, and it was 4 days later they found him. That was just 4 days. But he had family that he corresponded with, and suddenly he went silent. And eventually a phone call was made, go knock on my dad's door, and they found him. Um, I will not give his family a pass. How do you go 15 years without even saying hello?
They said something about uh, family break or divorce, something to that effect. But at the same time, I mean, you can't.
I
It's,
can't forgive a kid for that. I really can't.
it's excessive,
Uh huh.
even if it's hell, even if it's a year. You could probably say a break in the family. Temperature was high, and
Hmm.
people had time to get. But eventually, um,
But even if you're not going to talk to dad, you're going to talk to somebody in that town. Yeah, your dad's all right. He's over here at this cafe. He's getting around okay.
15 years, dude.
Yeah,
I was shocked. I was like,
15
what?
years. I can't forgive a family. I can give the neighbors a partial pass because they don't know his life. But
Insane.
yeah,
I mean,
well,
for the guy, it could have been 30 years and it made no difference. But, just the respect for, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Life. Um, just no, you know, um, who knows what the tragic turns
yeah,
of people's relations and their
yeah.
particular families are for whatever reason.
Dude, I've heard some horrified. I've heard some horrible stories that are true life. I mean, not something that you'd read on Reddit and not something that came out of some AI or something like that. I've heard some horrible stories of the way people treat their own family. The stuff that would make you sick.
Elder.
No, just uh, people just uh, being mean to their own family.
Mhm. There, there, there's
And
there's
there's
also,
some horrible people out there, man. That's all I'll say. There's some horrible people out there.
look, just this. I think this is just an important thing, and for whatever it's worth, um, our population in the United States, worldwide, but now we're gonna just stick with the United States. And I'll just say this, and whatever.
Mhm.
It is what it is. This is my view of it for the moment. Our population is not replacing enough young people. The old people. Our population is getting older and older,
Mhm.
with not enough young people. Now,
Mhm.
um, we need those young people. Scratch that. Society, in order for the system that we've always had, for
Mhm.
whatever it's worth, where as the rotation occurs through life, the cycles of life, um, everybody is transitioned in in a relatively smooth way in terms of people service the community. Um, the value of older people is, there's no price on it. Um, why? Because they're the keepers. Sure, there's some grumpy old, Dennis the Menace,
Yeah,
whatnot.
Mr. Wilson. Hmm.
But even yet, that grumpy old whatnot over on the corner, all of them, in totality, are the stabilizing part, a major part of the stabilizing force of existence,
Hmm.
because they carry with them tradition. Yes, they also carry with them, um, uh,
Knowledge.
knowledge, and they also carry with them baggage,
Hmm.
that doesn't keep up to date. But even with that not keeping up to date thing, sure, it can get to extremes. But even that not keeping up to date thing is a bridge, that the youngers can use to cross, preserve, and even enrich themselves as footing. Society is interwoven in
Well,
such ways that people may not see. Now, here's the thing: on the younger side of the scale, if these kids are not directed towards value and meaning, and respect, and I'm not trying to say rigidity, I'm trying to say that in a caring, compassionate way, that's also self interest in it. If we don't see the totality of humanity, within the context of the country, we're just saying, as important, um, and the decline, we'll reach. This is my pinnacle thing here. We'll reach a situation potentially where there's going to be a lot of young people that don't give a crap about older people. The older people are going to be lacking in services, and respect for the past. Will be treated as old hat, this, that, and the other. And basically, what I'm saying is that that we need to, in my opinion, have a sort of um, cyclical continuance, which is obvious. We're not in that direction. And here's the the final thing. Um, there's also bias against. So you know how there's bias, ethnic bias, political
hmm.
bias, religious bias, like, oh, the
Yeah.
Catholics, this, all that kind of stuff. All of that exists. There's also this thing called ageism.
Hmm.
We don't have to beat a dead horse, but what I'm saying is that we have to. It's a good idea to recognize that that people across the timeline of humanity are valuable in ways that we might take for granted more often than not. I guess I'm making an argument for stability and value with errors included. There's going to be grumpy people, pissed off people, but
But see, you value the family, and I think that's the cornerstone of everything. We have devalued the family to the point to where families don't matter, and I think that that's kind of why a lot of younger people are choosing not to have kids. It's because they don't want that responsibility. They want to do what they want to do and, keep having fun and not have the responsibility of raising someone else. Um, I saw an interesting statistic a few months ago. 80% of men will never pass along their to the
generate
next
their,
generation. They
yeah,
will not have children. 80%. That's scary. Now, a lot of it is self imposed, a lot of it is personal choice, and a lot of it is completely out of their control. They have no choice. Um, we have devalued the family to the point to where families just don't matter anymore. Everybody's off doing their own thing. It's not that they can't afford kids, Jim. It's that they don't want them. They don't want the responsibility.
Wait a second. Let's be clear. Both things are true. Both things are true. It's true what you're saying, but also what Jim's saying. Um, Now, you could take Jim to task, and Jim can take your position to task. He's not doing that, but he's adding. Let me just say this: Uh, you, it costs nothing to reproduce, but you have to house. you-
Yeah, and feed and everything else. Yeah, and that's what I mean by they don't want the responsibility.
but the want
Hmm.
is the problematic part of the
Not,
sentence.
but not according to the empirical data. When the empirical data comes back that says half of the young kids in this, that we're talking about the younger generation, more than half of them don't want children.
Okay, I disagree, and I'll explain why. Even
Well,
though there's empirical data,
you're
but
going to disagree with the empirical data.
absolutely, but in this way,
Okay, well, you're free to, but we need to land the plane, and I'm serious.
but in this way, the empirical data, I haven't seen that thing, so
Mhm.
that's pending. But the empirical data, does it ask economics? Does it ask the?
Yes, it does. Then a percentage can't afford kids, so they don't think they'll be able to have kids.
Okay, so Jim is not off of his. What I'm saying
No,
is that Jim has a validity in that too, right?
I never said nobody. What I always said was the majority don't want kids. They just don't want the responsibility. Yes, there is a percentage. I believe I want to say it was 24%, but I could be wrong. There is a percentage that don't think they can afford kids. There's a percentage of women who don't believe they'll ever meet the man they want to have kids with. It goes in many, many different ways.
Okay,
But the overwhelming majority, it was more than half, said, we just don't want kids. And I think that part of that, a symptom of that, I think that's a symptom of devaluing the family. Families being together as a cohesive unit and taking care of one another is seen as old school and passe. And we don't all have to sit and eat at the same table because Donnie doesn't like Taco Bell and Frankie wants to go get, he just wants to go get coffee with Julia. You know, you and I were raised where it's dinner time, you're sitting at the table. You don't like what mama made, you just go hungry. We were raised in a different way. We've got to put value on the family. And I think that ties in with it talking about the ageism and things like that. When you don't value your parents and you don't value your grandparents, how can you expect somebody to take care of them? It's too easy to dump grandma in a nursing home and let them handle it because I don't want to interrupt my fun.
yeah. I'll just say that um, there's a cause and effect. It didn't just happen out of
No,
nowhere.
no.
The conditions were set for these kids to, on many levels, be it economic, as Jim suggested, the moral effects, as you're suggesting, and selfishness. But I think that it's all, it doesn't live in a bubble. I think it lives in the
You're right.
continuum and where things have gone
Mhm.
on the various branches that are important for that. I think that those are all factors. Just saying
Sure.
I don't want this or that doesn't mean that it's just because it came out of the blue and this and that. I think it's the consequence of
Well,
the ethics of it and the economies and all these things
and
together.
allowances also have to be made for a lot of things are situational. If you're halfway through college, you're not thinking about having kids, you know? So when they ask you, no, I don't want kids. I'm in the middle of college. I've got 2 years to go to get my degree. I don't want kids. It's so a lot of things are situational. Maybe it is economic. Maybe it's situational. There are a lot of variables involved.
Yeah.
And I bet if you take the same surveys, in a different month, you'll get different responses and get different answers. But I was shocked by 80% of men will not have kids. I was shocked by that, you know?
Yeah, I haven't seen that study, but I have seen related studies of percentage of the population, and
Hmm.
it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look
How,
good at all.
however, on a good note, before we land, I'll just say this good note. It doesn't also mean that in unexpected ways that we can't see right now,
Mhm.
all of that projection won't shift in a positive direction. Like in
Yeah.
other words, we don't it look that's the trend, but we don't know because
Hmm.
for instance, Europe was decimated with the plague and guess
Sure.
what? They
Yeah.
built it back up,
Oh boy. Yeah.
so but again, that's the
Yeah.
projections and it is what it is and we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Well, um, I think of this as a diplomatic way of saying call your mother and just have a talk with her.
I think so. All right, guys.
Okay.
We're out of here. This is the Trampled Underfoot podcast show. No, I am gonna say the speech. I said we're out of here, out of place for some reason. Because I saw Kilroy's Spock sign, Vulcan
Hmm.
sign. We go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here at the YouTube channel, Trampled Underfoot podcast on YouTube, and we also have a Facebook page and that's Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. Go check that out. We leave posts, videos, links of things that we talk about on occasion over there. And we also have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com, and you can catch our past episodes over there. And by the way, we're also sponsored by.
I gotta get faster with these buttons. Harneal Media. Look, um, I've been singing Steve's praises from the get go, and I'm going to have a chat with Steve sometime in the next couple of days because I got another idiot idea, and I think Steve can help me take care of my idiot idea. But that's the kind of guy he is. He'll listen to what you want, and he'll move heaven and earth to get it for you because that's the kind of guy Steve is. If it can be done, he'll tell you how to do it. If you need help with it, he'll help you with it. That's the kind of service you get with Harneal Media. It's 100% personalized service. If you're having an issue, if he hasn't already detected it and fixed it, you can get a hold of him and he'll get it taken care of. He's extremely competitively priced. And after a little while, you wonder how the hell he does everything so cheaply. And after a couple of years, you wonder how the hell he does it anyway, simply because he never seems to sleep. I don't know if he's left the house in the last 6, 7 years. It's open for debate. So if you want to help Steve lose more sleep, or if you are thinking about a website, maybe you want to set up a web store, you have products or services you want to sell to the masses, no better way than with your own website. And Steve over at Harneal Media is the only people that we're going to ever recommend. Now, you're going to find a link to Harneal Media in every video and every live stream on this channel. And it's that way for a reason. So get down in the description, click on harnealmedia.com, click on that contact us button, and shoot Steve a message. He'll work with you. That's Harneal Media, HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
All right. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's been great. We enjoyed it. Hope you did too. Do the things you love the rest of this week. Plenty of great old things to do. If not, you can watch videos on the internet till the cows.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks
so,
for spending some time with us. It really means a lot.
yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll catch you next week. We're out of here.
Peace.